You are watching Omnis Protocol. I am Charles, also known as Omnis, and what we're going to do today is I've got my first full game recorded, and we're gonna do commentary for it. And so it's really I think a pretty interesting game. Donovan is on the left side. He is playing this clones. So it's a Republic team, but it's also got new crosshairs. So very interesting. So the full team is Hunter with Wolf and Arfs, and then it's got the new crosshair with Wrecker and Echo and Tech. So very cool. There's a lot of cross synergy between the different clone trooper models, like Commander Wolf protecting the crits for Crosshair. Very interesting. Really excited to see how it goes. On my side, I am testing out bounty hunters, or at least trying to use multiple of the new bounty hunters. And also, I'd never played a game with IG-11. So I've got Mando with Bosk and IG-11, and then I have Princess Leia Charming to the Last with IG-88 and the ISB agents. And since they're spies, they end up being like a 3-cost support that can also be moved by her ability because it's Rebel Alliance or Spy. So I think pretty interesting overall. Just wanted to get something where I could utilize multiple of those, new secondary bounty hunters, and this seemed like a good place to kind of roll with things and see how it would go. So, well, I think let's dive into the game. Um, I guess the one other thing to explain is I'm playing around with the layout, still kind of where to put dice trays, where to have the struggle tracker. And just for symmetry, I put a struggle tracker next to each dice tray. Probably going to do something different in the future, but this is what we're rolling with today. So let's go ahead and get into the game, shall we? So looking at things, I did end up winning priority. And so what's going to happen there is first card I reveal ends up being Mando, which I feel like this happens to me a lot. It's certainly not my preferred character to start off with. Uh, I like to save him for a few more crucial moments. I am getting my force set up. I did forget about that because now I'm thinking about reserving a character. And so that's got me thinking, probably need my force. So looking down, I do decide to reserve and I flip Leia Charming to the last. So going right into those primaries right away, which feels like just seems like the ominous way what happens to me a lot, for better or for worse. So here I do use her ability to start off by moving the ISB agents, kind of get them up the board. I do have the option to also use her other ability to grant a dash to one of them, so I could get one of them onto a point if I so decided. But I in this particular layout, I'm not sure if that's going to be a good idea or not. Also, there is one extra active objective at the moment. We're playing Never Tell Me the Odds. Leia is moving up towards an active objective. That one that's still flipped over, that's, basically just straight in front of her. That one is not an active objective. Yeah, we'll catch that here in a couple activations or something. And just from my side of the table, I couldn't quite see it from true line of sight. So I elect to not spend the force to advance that other ISB. I'm just concerned that I'm just going to lose them really early with just like how much offense his team can present. So seems like something that I should probably hold off on. Donovan flips Wrecker. And so I'm immediately very happy that I did not move the ISB all the way up. I would just get pummeled by Wrecker. Probably going to take a shot anyway, is what I'm thinking. So in this particular case, he uses his free dash to go up the ladder and then advances onto the point. I'm thinking that he's gonna shoot my ISBs, but he elects to take cover here, which is a really interesting play. Because it means unless I get up there and I actually engage him, I could have a really hard time dislodging Wrecker with Steadfast. Just it could be quite difficult. So an interesting play, and not one I think that everybody would make, but it was a very interesting one by Donovan. So props to him. Always like seeing the kind of some of the outside the box plays, and taking cover is probably a good play more often than people realize. So I reveal Bosk. This will be my first ever activation with Bosk. He is going to advance. He had started on elevation, so he advances to that part of the elevation, and there is an ingress point on it. So he moves down the ingress point. Now, what I've got to decide is, do I just want to leave him there? Do I want to try to shoot something? We don't currently have a ruling on Bosk's explosives. It's a question of whether or not there has to be a character in range 5 for him to use it on, for him to get the dash. We don't know at the moment. We were playing it as though I could just spend the force and get a dash like many characters can. Hopefully, we'll have that ruling from AMG soon to kind of decide. I thought it would be self-explanatory because Sabine's work that way, but her ability has different wording, and so it really could go either way. So I do elect to use the force, do a dash, and take a shot at Wrecker. See if I can soften him up just a little bit in case I have to fight over that point. Because I'm just staring down at the board. And I just don't know how I'm going to impact those back points. And means I really have to fight with Wrecker. And really all I have on that side of the board is the ISBs and IG-88, since Leia's already gone unless I Shatterpoint her. So it's certainly not optimal. Maybe in retrospect, I should have had Leia move to that particular point. Yeah, maybe I should have done that. So at least if Wrecker was going towards the middle, he would have had to put greater pressure to actually do something on my side of the board, which would have been easier to fight over. So good lesson for when you go and you check out these these games after you've played them through, and you're like, I didn't even really consider that. And I think because in my head, I wanted Leia's revenge triggers to be more relevant. So he flips ARF troopers. Always good to get ARF troopers up relevant, kind of threatening that um, threatening, just to put expose wherever he ends up needing them. And I have a team that pretty much across the board does not like being exposed. I tend to roll a lot of expertise, which makes me play characters with good expertise. And so I hate expose. It is not my friend. And Donovan likes to punish me for my crimes. So he decides to do a take cover action. What he's kind of thinking about with that ARF that's up on the terrain already. See, finally caught and remove that to make this, a little easier for all of you to understand. What he's wondering is whether or not that ARF trooper is going to be able to walk and land on the bottom and then be able to go up that ingress point, so he has a character who's on the correct elevation level. And he's just not sure if he's going to be able to do it. So he moves one ARF to kind of be further forward, and he moves one ARF in it's kind of hidden under the terrain now, but just kind of being able to go a lot of different directions. I think either Hunter or Wolf could potentially give that ARF a dash now and get him to the piece of terrain. I reveal IG-11. And so I do have a thought process in my mind that maybe there's a play if IG-11 can do something pretty great. So he gets a free dash, and then I do an advance forward. And I'm thinking I've got to put some pressure somewhere. And if I do go far enough down, there is the potential for me to displace, maybe even wound someone, move onto the point, take another attack, and shove Wolf off if things went really well. So just kind of, you play to your outs. So I want to start off by shooting the ARF unit, because if I'm going to wound someone with a bigger attack, I really want to put pressure on his ARFs as soon as possible. I do elect to roll 10 dice, hoping for a big spike, but not really going to happen. Yeah. So he ends up with 5 blocks total. I believe I'm going just 2 down on him. Um, Definitely not what I wanted. Lose a momentum, and it does not look like I'm in range to put a shot onto Wolf. So that is going to end, and I just scored 2. He's got Echo and Tech now. Probably not the optimal activation for him, but at the same time, he's in an advantage spot, and I was not able to flip a point back my direction. So for him, this point is just kind of reinforce. Make it harder and harder for me to take points. Donovan's a fantastic player, so he's going to do exactly that. Just get characters more onto the objectives, make it so I have to do even crazier swings to get any points off of him. And so he does elect to take a shot at Bosk here. Might as well start softening up some targets. Donovan is definitely happy wounding characters. Donovan does not always remember to roll in the tray. I think we get there. It gets a little consistent later on. I believe he did also expose me, so not wonderful. So it's 4 damage, I believe, and I think I'm getting shoved twice. And I get strained, which is obviously not what Bosk wants because he can heal back to full, but not when he's strained. So I do have some ways to get around that, but you'd obviously prefer to not have it. So here he's just kind of trying to figure out if he's got another angle to get me past that little piece of that little computer terminal, and he does. So he does have another shot, and he's electing to use that one on an ISB agent. Not a great block for me. I believe I'm blocking 2. Uh, yeah, he still ends up going 4 down after the bonus hit from Hunter, and so also 4 damage, strain, and 2 shoves. Oh, pinned as well. Forgot about that. Both characters got pinned on that. Echo and Tech putting in work. So he scores 3 again. So it's already looking a little grim for me. Here I reveal IG-88. I really wish that this activation had come up before the Echo and Tech activation. That would have given me a lot more options. But again, he's just reinforcing points, put me in a tough spot. So what we're going to do here is we use the free dash to move over to the ingress point and go up. So now I'm checking range on who it's possible for me to shoot from there. I end up electing to advance, and there's an ingress point that's kind of hidden under the gantry, and I'm able to get to that, so I move up. What I'm hoping for here is if I can potentially double shove him, it's possible for me to get him off and then get IG-88 onto the point. That would be great. So I'm not spending force for additional dice because of his rerolls. But he ends up with 4 blocks, and so I'm only going to go 2 down. So it traps me out of the play that I was hoping for. Because I believe what's going to happen here is I am going to be able to shove him off the point. However, the problem is that one shove is not going to get me onto the point. So yeah, we check. I am not on the point. I do not affect the score in a big way. If I went 1 more down, that would have been huge, or at least would have made things a little scarier for him. But I only score 2. he gets a Shatterpoint. And so this is definitely going to put a lot of pressure on me. Whenever you're behind, and then your opponent also gets the Shatterpoint, you're like, it's going to be foot on the gas, boot on the throat. Donovan's going to put as much pressure on me as he can. So right now, he's just kind of contemplating who he wants to do. I mean, obviously, Hunter is always a great choice. I think there's a good chance because he's exploring Crosshair that he's heavily leaning towards Crosshair. There's good targets in front of Crosshair, and who doesn't want to get more activations with with their new model? It's kind of the point of what both of us are doing in this game. So definitely, definitely a reasonable option. So overall, I'm definitely not feeling great about my board position in this moment. I'm just not getting enough swing out of the bounty hunters. He does elect to utilize Crosshair here, and he does get to give a dash to someone else. So he's also going to dash, I believe, I always want to say like Techo, but I believe that one's Echo is that he's moving back up onto the point. Might as well reinforce. Yep. And I believe now we're going to end up with IG-88 taking a crosshair shot to the face. No. Actually, I totally forgot about this, that he was putting damage on Echo and Tech to be able to get additional dice for Crosshair. Decent block for me. I'm blocking 4. I do like IG-88's defense dice. He will eventually roll in the tray. He's apologizing. Yeah, so he is not going to get the wound, it looks like, but he's putting heavy pressure onto IG. And again, he's already ahead on points, so it's not like he needed a big swing in this moment. It is going to be 7 damage. So I'm just seeing this struggle slip away from me, where I just don't have a great play to come back. It's just at this point, all 3 of the points that he is controlling have multiple characters on them. And so how I'm going to be able to swing anything is just getting harder and harder. I reveal ISBs, and this is the moment where I'm like, wait a second, I shouldn't be out of cards. I did not put a Shatterpoint into my deck, which is always a little bit of a disadvantage. So we go ahead and add it. What had happened was right at the beginning of the game, kind of switched teams. I was going to play my all Mando team, but since I realized I was going to play that in the second game, I elected to build something with bounty hunters instead. And I just forgot to put that Shatterpoint in there. So we just go ahead and have me resolve activating the ISBs now. Looking at it, so I've got the pin and the strain, so it's just kind of an awkward spot for them. What I'm contemplating here is whether or not I want to do the recover action, and pretty sure I'm going to do that. Yeah. So I do take the recover action, remove both of the remove both of the conditions. So I still have 4 damage on me. That one dashes forward, as does the other one. It's figuring like gonna try to take some shots. I do take the additional damage so that I can get a free focus action. The ISBs also are one of the few characters who are holding rifles, yet are only range 4. So My plan here is to just try to soften up uh, Echo and Tech or get the wound. Yeah. Unfortunately, they have protection from Wrecker. So I only end up dealing 2 damage and pin them and leave them on 1. And then my other ISB totally whiffs. And I still am unable to impact. So leave them on 1, which is never what you want. Then Techo and just being a boss. So now he reveals Crosshair. I've pretty much realized, like, in this moment, like, ISBs have 3 health, IG88 has 2, and he's going to get Crosshair, and he's right at the point where he needs to score 3 plus a wound, I believe, to just win the struggle. So I'm pretty sure the struggle is just going to end here. It's just a question of who does he want to attack. So already got to start thinking about struggle 2 and knowing that my next activation is is going to be in the next struggle, and how can I make a big impact. Thankfully, because of the Shatterpoint mistake, I do have Mando and Shatterpoint as my activations to start the next struggle, so that's at least very reasonable. That's about as good as I could ask for. Obviously I would have preferred to have the Shatterpoint potentially earlier on. That could have given me the ability to activate a key character before the points were stacked up and come back in struggle 1. So he uses that movement on the ARF to get him onto another point, so that there's the potential that in the next struggle that ARF starts off scoring. I do get a big block, but he only really needs to go 1 down, and that's the 2 damage that he needs. Okay. And so we give him the force and the momentum, and I have 3 triggers. So Bosk dashes to remove the pin. And then we also realize that because his revenge trigger is a reaction, that would also trigger strain first. And so even though I don't get to make an attack on anyone, I think it ends up being worth it to get rid of the strain so that he's got 7 damage on him instead of the strain, because if I choose to activate him with the Shatterpoint, that would heal him back to full. And so I do elect to do that to remove the status effects, even though I take 3 damage. Mando also just kind of like moved up into a more relevant position. Leia moves to a ladder and is just going to like potentially be on another objective. And I do take a shot there at Crosshair. He still has an action left, so it's not going to be very impactful, but you never know. He blocks 3. I have a crit and 2 hits, so I'm just going to get the crit through. So it'll be 1 damage and a shove. Yeah. So not a significant impact. He elects to climb back up onto that point. Okay, so this is where Donovan officially takes the first struggle. Congratulations, Donovan. I had a feeling he was not going to not not going to let it go well for me if he can help it. So I didn't feel like I had a great choice here, but we end up with this kind of T shape where I at least have that objective, one objective already controlled by ISBs, and an objective controlled by IG-11 in the back. So definitely not too bad. But that third objective is controlled by two characters to start things off. Definitely not my preferred situation. And the one that is going to be the double score is the one that he's got two characters on. So I'm thinking here this is not the play for Mandalorian. This is where I should find a good Shatterpoint play. I do want to point out here that in the moment, I did not realize just how good of a play Bosk would be. Ryan pointed out to me after the game that Bosk could use his ability to deal one, because he only needs to deal one damage to have his explosives blow up Echo and Tech, which would remove one person from that point. And then if he can go two down on Crosshair, he could shove Crosshair off. And with the two movements, it would not be unreasonable for Boss to be able to get to um, the points. So that would have been a very strong play. What I end up doing here is I choose to activate Leia. Leia is just always a great shatter point. She puts the two ISB up on that actual elevation level to, kind of just put me in a position where I have characters at least actually on the objective. So it's not just an easy claim. And I definitely want to do something on this side of the board because I know his last two cards are Hunter and Wolf. So his ability to impact that other side of the board is not great at the moment. So kind of contemplating, like, the other thing that's on my mind is I would love to wound the ARFs, but I really want to at least get it so that we're tied on that objective. And so he doesn't start off scoring it. Because if I can do that, then he's not going to have a great way to start scoring it. Neither will I, but it'll at least kind of force us to be fighting over 2 points that I have good control over. So she does a focus action. Yeah, and so the focus action gives her a dash, and then she's going to do an 8 dice shot into I believe Techo. I end up going 3 down. They only have 1 health, so it's definitely going to be an easy wound. So got 1 shove, but not enough to get them off of the objective. She so she follows up, and then she does the reposition from her tree. I do still have the ability to spend a force to dash someone. And I do elect to do that. So here I'm just kind of contemplating who should dash where. So I'm verifying that IG is on that objective. And I dash Mando to an ingress point and put him up on the point, and that at least puts me in a slightly better position to pressure him. Apologize about the occasional wobbliness. I think we're just kind of like leaning on the table, and that's making the whole thing just wobble a touch. So with the block roll, he wants to take the point from Mando and IG. Yeah. He reveals Wolf, and Wolf is just a really strong character overall. So I'm confident he can make a good play here to keep the pressure on me. There is an ingress point over there, so he was checking a measurement to see if it seems like the ARF would just be able to like go over to the ingress point and then go up. Well, while he's thinking, just remember, got to have the bounty hunter shirt to match the bounty hunters on the table. Always try to bring a little theme. Also, shout out Donovan's using his GT templates. Always cool to have the swag. Just some of that the challenge of some of that subtle positioning. So he does elect to use the activated ability to use the climb on the ARFs, goes to a ladder, moves up on the point, and then he does get to climb both of them. So here he's resolving it on the other ARF, kind of figuring out where that ARF should go. This is not something super impactful in this moment. So he's going to kind of climb him over towards an ingress point and then have him go up. So he is projecting that coordinated fire exposed to base the whole table. And then he spends a force to give the dash and hunker to Wolf. Or sorry, not dash and hunker. Wolf's is dash and focus. So now I'm getting shoosted. He did expose me, so I no no blocks from the Mandalorian. Told you guys I roll a lot of expertise. So poor Mando is about to get shoved into oblivion. Yep. Man, Arv's put a lot of pressure on Mando. He does not like having to roll dice without his defensive expertise. So I end up taking 5 damage, disarm, pin, I believe, and he's shoved 3 times. So Wolf does 2 follow-ups, and then he climbs onto the point. Little tiny adjustment. He's able to swing that point back, so he scores 2. And because I scored 2 last time, that does give both of us a momentum. Obviously, I know my last activation is Mando, so at least this is a reasonable spot because I know that I have Mando on that side of the table to try to retake that point. So I've got 2 force remaining. So I do Clan of 2 first. Going to remove the pin. I take 5 dice attack. So I believe I just put 2 damage on the ARFs. It was not a real impactful roll. Realize here, I also forgot to deflect into Wolf. We don't back up though. I do make a mistake here. I had 1 force remaining, and I forgot that IG was wounded, and so I would not have been able to do this to roll additional dice. In the end, I don't think it's super impactful. Only needed to go 2 down to get the ARFs, and he only rolled 2 blocks. So I don't think this mistake had a big swing on the game, but it definitely would cost 2 force to use IG's ability now. So he advances to the ingress point, and then I still have IG there, and even though he's kind of obstructed by the terrain, here, because I did do an advance, and he knows that Hunter's the last activation, he does get to do Hunter's bonus movement. Yeah, the priority objective was the one by Leia and Crosshair. So again, I only scored 2. Getting stuck with that 2 activations in a row is certainly not fantastic for me making a good comeback. And we know that Donovan is going to have to activate Hunter now. But as far as like good swing potential, like that's about as good as it can get. Like Hunter is just a fantastic character. So that's just always a guy who can make a big impact play. But I finally have both of his supports wounded, which definitely helps. So when you have characters like Wolf and Hunter, sometimes their activations just get a touch delayed because the very first thing you need to do is decide who's getting the bonus movement. And so at this point, Donovan's kind of eyeing how can he get back there and get to the ISBs. But Hunter's got so much movement that it seems very reasonable that he would be able to pull that off. So he uses Hunter's bonus movement to give a full advance to Wrecker to get him actually on that point. He goes up the objective. So when you're activating Hunter, you do have to think about that dash combined with, when you're going to advance and can you get an extra attack and kind of like maximizing the different movements. And so that's what Domin's doing now. It's kind of going like, okay, where are the ingress points? Where can I be kind of the most optimal with my varied, Hunter movements to get him all the way across the board? It's a big play in Shatterpoint in general when you have characters like Hunter who not only have, you know, 2 different movements, also have ranged attacks and have bonus movement on their attacks. So Hunter can definitely get where he wants to go. So he dashes down to go up a ladder, and so he might seem kind of out of position now, but he has um, a full advance still to move towards the ISBs if he wants. He does have to kind of forfeit that 5 dice melee attack because there's just nowhere for it to go. Here he's just kind of examining ranges of, depending on where he elects to have Hunter drop down, like who is he going to be able to shoot. So he goes to that piece of terrain, and I believe he's going to use that ingress point to come down. Yep, same, basically a similar thing I did with Bosk, but on the opposite side, or from the opposite side anyway. So you can already see, like, man, Hunter is nearby all of the things that I would rather he not be shooting. So Bosk is at 1. ISBs have through 3 or 4 health. So here it's just a question of which one do you want to murder? Okay. He elects to spend the force on the ARFs to expose. So just counting up some dice now, seeing where we're at. I'm only blocking one. So he gets the last point of damage on Bosk. So he's also going to put expose, strain, and I think pin as well. Kind of shoves me out of the way, does a little follow up. So now at this point, he has wounded Bosk, so I get both a trigger with Leia and Mando. But I'm not in a wonderful spot to do that much with it, because Leia is engaged by Crosshair, and there's no spot for her to move and still remain contesting that point at the right elevation and be able to shoot Hunter. And so I just kind of use the dash to kind of shift her forward, and then Mando gets to heal too. Just kind of refill him a little bit. And I've got a movement. Because I have IG-11 there, and I'm realizing that at this moment, Donovan is not going to score any. So I'm guaranteed to be able to win next turn. Or very, very likely at the least. So I move Mando just towards a different point so that it increases the possibility that I'm on the right points for the next struggle. So I reveal Bosk. So right now I'm just kind of looking at who all has damage on them. Right, there's 4 on Wrecker Omega, there's 1 on Crosshair. So Bosk flips the wounded token. I remove the strain and damage, and then his ability to heal removes the other status effects. You'll find when you watch me play games, I don't reserve very often. I don't like spending my force for it. I'm much more in the camp of like, I want to make good plays with each character. Here is where I'm realizing like that IG is wounded, so it wouldn't cost me 1, it would cost me 2. And I was thinking, because I don't care that much about momentum if I don't wound someone in this moment, but I don't feel like it's worth spending 2 force. I would have spent 1. So I go ahead and throw 7 dice into Hunter, I believe. And so he does get a couple of rerolls. Ends up with 3 blocks. I go 3 down on Hunter. You know, sometimes, like, even though Hunter's not on a point or anything, I just want to kind of put some pressure on him. And I do get 2 shoves, so I can follow up. And now I'm just thinking, okay, I've got this movement action still remaining for Bosk. And so I'm going to move him up just so he's kind of towards a point, and I am engaging Hunter. And so that ends struggle 2. Woo, I got one. So I'm in this thing. Now I just need the third struggle to not go awfully for me. So we're flipping objectives. And so we end up going with, we know the one that Mando on is 100% of the choices. And And so basically the layout, there's the one that's by Techo and the one that's under box, or there's the ISBs plus the one that Bosk and Hunter are kind of underneath. So we decided to go with the diagonal line. And this is definitely a very reasonable flip for me. That choice with Mando was really key, and I think that's one of the subtle things that is what puts Mando into being one of those top tier characters, is when you see those moments where you can move him off of a point and it doesn't affect scoring because you retain a tie. He was the tiebreaker that got you the point, but now he can use that revenge to move somewhere else, and him starting off on that point is huge for me. Yeah. So he reveals Wolf here, and this is where my choice to engage Hunter with Bosk ended up being huge, because if I had chosen not to do that, which I was very close to doing, I was very close to having him be just a little further back, then Hunter would just be able to immediately just walk up and be on that top point, and that would be a great swing for him. And really, this is one of the moments where that wolf activated ability is just a little rough, because we're just all in these clusters, like all over the map, where there's just not that many plays that actually can generate movement. You know, just almost everybody's engaged by somebody. Just had a particularly kind of clustered game, so he's just kind of elaborating, like, is there any play that he's missing with Wolf in this moment? Is there something that's not immediately popping out, but if you examine a little bit deeper, that something reveals? I think we're realizing that the only thing that he really can move is an ARF. Just everybody else is engaged in some level. um I suppose tech is a possible movement as well. So it's kind of like climb, uh, climb with tech or climb with an ARF, and that's it. That's the options, and both are wounded. And just with such the swing potential that Wolf has, it just always feels rough when you're in that spot and you're like, all I can do is move one dude who's wounded. That's never the feeling that you want. So I can understand why it like kind of paused Donovan here for a moment. So he does elect to give that ARF a climb, just kind of shift his position a little bit, get him onto the point, just kind of where you project that coordinated fire expose. And then what Wolf does here is he he spends the force to move down and then take another dash to move to the other side of Mando. Because where I'm positioned on the point, it's a lot. Here, he would only need one shove to get me off. Um, we're kind of early in the deck, so he elects to not expose me. I do have 5 blocks and a crit to fail, but I can't modify his crits. He does get a bonus hit from Hunter. But even with me uh, blocking 5, he still ends up going. I think he full trees me still. Man, Wolf, just such a good character that people really do not play enough. So resolving some shoves now. Yep, three shoves. This is why I play Wolf. Obviously, I'm not playing him in this game, but I have pitched pretty heavily to these guys that Wolf is a boss. I'm very happy to see Donovan playing him. So that was the priority point. So he does score 2. I reveal Leia here. So I got a few different options. Leia's certainly not a bad pick for this moment. But I'm kind of looking at the whole deck, and I believe the priority roll came up where I needed to be able to impact that one where Wolf is at. So I'm thinking about who can affect that point. Reveal Mando. Certainly not upset about that. Mando is disarmed and pinned, so definitely not the optimal play. Yeah, because I started off controlling the point with the ISB, it's just more important to take that priority point. So here what I'm checking is because of the positioning of those crates, the angle that I would have to take to actually move him the range 2 is likely just going to shove him into the other crates and keep him within range 2. And so I'm thinking I need to get to the other side of him so I can shove him in a more direct away from the objective if I want to lock in taking that point. And I'm trying to figure out is if there's a way that I can remove the status effects and like still get a shot. And I just don't think that that's going to happen. So I elect to do a recover action to remove the pin. And then I do a full advance. And then I spend one for Clan of Two. I'm going to move to the other side of him. And then just shove Wolf away. I certainly could have potentially tried to go the route of using Clan of Two to shoot him again, and see if that allows me to move on to the point. But I wanted to have the guaranteed play. So I score 3. Reveals Arfs. Certainly a reasonable option here. ARFs do have the ability, like, it would not be crazy for the ARFs to wound the ISBs and take control of the middle at the very worst. So I believe he is going to activate them and is not going to reserve them. So he spends 2 force to do their dash and hunker. And so that one moves to an ingress point and goes up. That one just kind of moves across the terrain. Do have a hunker now. So now they're checking the range 5 shots. The one over there is going to put some hurt onto ISB. I do roll a good block, but he got a crit. And so does end up going 2 down, which is going to be, I believe, 2 damage, pin, and a shove off. He's kind of checking to see whether or not he could just advance onto that objective, and I agreed he definitely could. And so now we're just kind of thinking about that shot from the other ARF. And Mando's in range, Bosk's in range, and IG is in range. I believe here he's taking a shot at Bosk. So just check and tree for the potential. He does go 4 down, which does 5 damage, pin, and expose, and has a shove. Does a little follow up. And he still has a move action here. So that ARF is just going to walk down, trying to be a good opponent, help that guy walk, and then that one moves on to that point. So he is able to score 3. And so goes to 2 on his side. So I do feel like this is the time to activate Leia. She gives the free movement to the ISB. The first one who's already on the objective will move or try to move and get rid of the pin. And then the other one walks to the ingress point and comes up. So we're now tied at that point. Uh, with the ARFs being at full health now, I'm not confident that Leia would be able to wound them. So what I'm kind of considering is the priority point is the most important point, and that's where the ISBs are. So I'm kind of contemplating what my plan is. So she dashes to, she basically dashes down off the terrain by an ingress point and then goes up to the top terrain. And what I'm thinking about here is it's very easy for her to get one shove. And so my thought process is with her being up on the edge of that terrain, that I could just shove myself down and then be on the right elevation, to help contest that objective. I would love to go after that ARF in the middle, but even if I spend the force to give Bosk a dash, he's not close enough to get to the objective, and he's actually pinned as well. So it's just stacked reasons why it just wouldn't work. Here I'll just double check and make sure I put the right status effects on him. Just Donovan been handing out a lot of status effects. I had at least once set a token down on the wrong side, and so just making sure I had it all right. So I like to put 8 dice into the ARF that's on the objective with the ISBs. He ends up with 4 blocks. So definitely not going to be wounding today. Blocks 4, so I'm going to go 3 down. So here I'm just kind of thinking about some push angles. Definitely going to shove him, just kind of seeing if I have the angle to get him to the edge and then get him off. Leia, great at getting locked in shoves, not necessarily great at wounding full health characters. So it ends up being 3 damage, 2 shoves, and expose. She follows up. Second shove shoves him off. Wrecker only gives the steadfast to Scoundrels and Bad Batch. Or maybe it's just Bad Batch. But we do realize here in a moment that we put too much damage on the ARFs, and it would only be 2 because they would get protection. So she is able to follow up onto that point. So she's contesting. I have the ability to spend a force to dash someone. And so I believe what I'm thinking here is remove a point from somebody. And so here I decide, might as well get IG affecting a point. So I decided to remove the pin off of Bosk uh, and Dash. Here we're just correcting and removing that 1 damage from the ARF troopers because they would have had protection from Wrecker. I score 3, back to 1. It's always a little challenging when you get in this cycle where you're not hitting 0 and you're not ending on either person's side, so there's not really that momentum increase to help pace the game. Reveals Hunter. That's about as good as you could hope for. Hunter is always a great play and kind of in the middle of the action, so has a lot of potential targets. Definitely feeling like there's a reasonable possibility that my ISB die, but it also would not be crazy to have Boss go down as well. But, you know, it is a Hunter activation, so the first thing that you kind of have to consider is who's going where. Got to give a movement to somebody. So, who are we going to move? There's not sure there's an amazing option. I feel like that probably moving that ARF back up onto the point is going to be the best bet, which looks like that is what Donovan is going to go ahead and do. Check-in ranges at the moment. I believe he's not quite in range 4 of the ISB at the moment. So it's going to go ahead and use striking distance first. So he ends up using the dash from striking distance and is now next to Bosk. I'm pretty sure Bosk is about to get shanked. Bosk rolls all 4 fails to block nothing. Pretty sure that's going to be a wound. But at least I'm playing a list with revenge triggers, so all of this pain and suffering allows me to at least get something done on the table. Yeah. It's still, honestly, sometimes when you have the revenge triggers, you don't get to necessarily have amazing plays with them. Mando is still kind of protecting a spot and doesn't have a good play to like swing the middle or anything. He could move over to a ladder and go up, but he would not end up on either point. So, all right. So just finish resolving the attack. You know, when you have revenge triggers, you need to make sure that you let the opponent completely resolve their tree, completely resolve their expertise, and then any of their triggers off of wounding. Then you get to do the revenge triggers. Mando just kind of moves forward a little bit in case I do want to flex him later on. Gets a little healing. And at this point, Hunter still has 2 actions. But what I'm thinking about here is he is almost certainly going to take that point from me. I just don't see the ISB with 2 health left surviving Hunter shooting them. And so I start thinking that like maybe it would be better if I can get Leia towards the middle point. So she dashes down and then goes up a full length ladder and staying out of range of the ARF for the moment. And I'm just going to put some shots into Hunter just to see if I can soften him up a little bit. He blocks 3, but I have 2 crits, so I get to put a little damage into him. But he also rolled enough expertise that he's getting a dash out of it, so I'm not even like kind of messing with his positioning much. And then Leia follows up to now be on the point and engaging the ARF. Here, what I'm thinking is like maybe there's a possibility that I soften up Hunter enough that I can make a play at some point. So I'm going to go ahead and put an attack into the ISB now. As I'm suspecting they are not going to live, I block 2. Yeah, ends up with 4 crits after expertise, so not great for me. So this is going to wound the ISBs. Trying to see if where that ISB is at, if he can get shoved, and it doesn't look like it. Yeah. But he does have 2 shoves. So the first one kind of clearing the edge, and then the second one shoving him off. And now because I've moved Leia, so we've finished resolving the attack. So now I have revenge triggers again. So I now have 4 damage on Hunter. So there is certainly a possibility of starting to get Hunter into a Hunter position where I can wound him. Probably not going to happen on this. The reason why he did the dash is because that was part of his expertise. And so I dash Leia so she's still on the objective, but outside range 2 of that ARF, so I can take another shot at Hunter. He knows he's already controlling the point with Wrecker, so he doesn't need Hunter over there. Basically the same exact attack roll. He blocks all my hits. My 2 crits gives me 2 damage, 2 shoves. Just kind of loading up damage on him as best as I can. He did, I believe he had a recover. And so on this one, that's why he only ended up with 5 damage on him. And now I get to resolve Mando. Figuring Hunter's coming up on that point. Mando's not really going anywhere. Just did a little bit more healing. So he scores 3. I get a Shatterpoint now. So that's about as good as you could hope for in this moment. I need a big swing. And the weird thing here is you think about a team like this and you're like, oh, like Leia would be great. But Leia's already on a point, and there's no one great for her to move. Bosk is wounded, IG-88 is wounded, ISBs are wounded. And so the only characters that she could potentially move are IG-11 and Mando, and they're already kind of on relevant points, and she's on a point. And so it's not likely that she's going to make a big swing. So what I'm thinking here is it's probably going to be Shatter pointing the ISB, which may not be a lot of people's kind of immediate, immediate character that they're drawn to for this sort of play. But I feel comfortable that they can wound the ARF because he's exposed and has 5 health left. And so the question is just kind of like how I do it, because they do have 3 status effects on them. And I need to get one up onto the point as well. So kind of mathing all the stuff out. So I do decide I am going to activate the ISB. So I elect to remove the strain with the kind of waking up from being wounded. I only have 3 force left, but I'm debating here is like, is it worthwhile for me to use 2 force to get rid of pin, get one up onto the point, and get the focus action. And it is really beneficial with them because you're getting like the focus out of it. You're getting, you just get a lot out of it. And thinking about what I have left, I think I can manage on 1 remaining force. So that is exactly what I do. I use the free dash. The first one removes the pin, and the one I actually want to move up gets to dash up to the ingress point. I am taking the damage to get the free focus action, but I just haven't put the damage on then yet. There we go. Get the damage on there. First attack blocks 2. So it looks like a decent roll. End up with 6 down. Can't be 6 down. That seems like a lot. But I believe what happens here is that I'm not quite going to be able to wound them. Oh, yeah, I think I do full tree, but the problem is that my max damage is currently 5, and they get protection from Wrecker. And what I debate is, do I want to shove him off and like guarantee taking the point but not get the wound? And so I elect to leave him there and apply some status effects. He blocks 2. And so I get what I need. 3 damage reduced to 2, which is enough to wound, and will shove him off the point. And I do have an action left now, so they're going to do the recover action and heal the expose and 1 damage. So I am able to score 3. So we're kind of just doing that dance, and I gain a momentum for killing the ARFs. And then he gets shatter points. So back-to-back shatter points, keeping things challenging. This is, I think, a defining moment in this game. Who do you activate? Hunter is already on a point, but Hunter's always a pretty reasonable activation. Wolf is probably not the activation. He doesn't have huge swing potential here with both the supports currently wounded. He can't really move Crosshair to any relevant position. So all he could do is shoot on his side of the board. Well, he could get over there and shoot at the ISB, and maybe even get up there. So that's certainly a possible play, but it kind of would like remove his ability to pressure that side of the table. And so I think it comes down to the real considerations. You probably aren't doing the ARFs because they've been wounded twice. So if he activates them, they're gone. And then expose is not even an option anymore. And so that's probably not worth it. Getting Echo and Tech back in the swing of things might have been worthwhile. He elects to go for Wrecker. He does the dash. Does not end up being within range 1 for the shove. But we look at it. we check the range, and because it's going to overlap the ladder, he wouldn't be able to shove me off anyway. So he's only got one force, so he can't do the second attack from Wrecker. He also doesn't have the force to expose. So Wrecker is going to punch the ISB. I end up with a great block. I believe after expertise, I'm blocking 5. And so he only is going to go 3 down on me. So I am not getting wounded yet. So I end up with strain, pin, and 4 damage. I was asking the moment because I knew that there was ability for make another attacks. I didn't know if that was coming or not. He would have the ability to roll to try to deal some more damage, which would give extra momentum, which would be a big swing, but he would need 4 successes on 5 dice to wound me there. So he elects that that's not worth spending his last force on. So I reveal ISBs here. They're awake and controlling the point. I'm thinking about which characters are left in my deck. And I think I can get by on no force. And so I reveal IG-11. So why I wanted to like hold off on the ISBs is I felt like I was going to need a comeback play with them eventually. They are going to get wounded, and they're my best play to retake that point. So activating them right now didn't feel like the right play. Like what are they going to do? They can't really leave. They maybe wound Wrecker for some momentum, but I wanted to play it to middle and to save that activation for later. So this is where the bounty hunters can really be advantageous and allow you to do some interesting things with your force. IG-11 gets to move for free, and I just was staying outside of range of Wolf because I wanted to have climbing or advance be an option. So here I'm checking like, okay, so I've got 5 damage on Hunter. It would only take 4 to wound him. I go ahead and use his identity, and I'm going to roll 10 dice on Hunter, thinking I've got some swing potential here, and I'm willing to risk the momentum. Hunter blocks 3. But I rolled 4 fails. So I end up doing 3 damage and a pin, leaving Hunter on 1. So I was originally thinking I was going to do 3 damage and a pin, but then I'm realizing that he has a dash. And so I think I got in my head a little bit in this moment. The pin would stop him from moving anyway, but I'm trying to figure out where I end up wanting IG to end up. And I'm actually thinking that maybe I want the reposition on IG's tree instead. Because I was thinking I wanted to take that other attack with him, and I was thinking about the potential for me to end up engaged. So I decide to reposition. Wonder if we might have left 1 damage off of Hunter. I think I was supposed to do 2, but I don't think that ends up mattering in the long run. So here I take a shot at Wolf and just put 2 damage on him. Definitely would feel a little bit better if I had remembered to deflect on Wolf. And then he uses his last activation to move on to that point. I am able to score. I believe I score all 4 there. He reveals Echo and Tech. He's got 1 force, so probably not a good idea to reserve them. He's still got a few activations to keep in mind. We've got Echo does a full advance and then goes up a ladder. And then I always have a hard time with remembering which model is Tech and which one is Echo, because Echo is also like just a very technical character, and so it's just my mind struggles with it a little bit. But Echo's over there on that point now. So here we've got Echo is shooting at my IG-11. We end up, I believe, putting 3 damage and strain. So he kind of gets me out of position. I think there was also a pin, and then I just removed the pin because I believe I got a reposition on my tree. So he is able to get me off the point. He takes the Tech takes a shot at my ISB, and I do have a good block. And he's able to get 2 more damage, not enough to wound, so he's not able to swing that point. He is racking up some momentum now, though. So I could activate ISB here, but I'm still holding that point. And I know that I have IG-88 still in the deck. Hunter has 3 health left at the moment. I decide I am going to reveal IG-88. So again, both of the IG units really help you manage force, especially as things are getting wounded, because you get those free dashes from them. Thinking about, okay, who am I pushing off points? So he dashes off of the terrain down to an ingress point and then moves up. Taking an 8 dice shot into Echo. Looks like he blocks 3. I'm going to be able to go 4 down. I'm not able to wound, but I'm able to do 6 damage and 2 shoves, putting a lot of pressure on that unit. And then follow up. I do still have an action left, so I was contemplating if I have a heal play on anybody. But Leia's at full; she hasn't been touched. IG88 is refreshed. So I just elect to like move him a little bit more. So I'm able to score 4. I'm basically 2 away from winning. So this is probably the first moment in the game where I feel like I'm actually in an advantageous spot. I feel like I've been behind the whole time. Donovan reveals Wrecker. And there is some swing potential here. He's got the force to potentially put some damage in on the ISBs. And I left Echo and Tech at 1, so he still has a body on that point. So first thing with Wrecker is you're going to resolve the dash. So you're just kind of trying to figure out where he's going. The bulldoze is, I believe, what it's called. And when you're on this edge, it's definitely about like, can you swing multiple points? So he's going to dash away. And he is still within range 3 of the objective. So he's spending his last force, rolling some dice, but he only ends up with 1 success, and I have 2 health left on the ISB. So this here pretty much locks it in for me. There was the potential that if he wounds the ISF and takes that point, and then is able to, if he is able to take the top point and scores 2, that maybe it's still a game, but the reality here now is he absolutely can only impact. He's only impacting 1 point now. And so this pretty much wraps up the game. We kind of discussed some options from here of what you could do. Um, he would not have had an angle to try to shove IG off either. And so we're just kind of talking about it now. Like, even if he had gotten that I have ISBs left, and so at this point, they're going to, even if he was able to get the wound on them, they're definitely retaking that point from a 1 health Echo. The one, like, unless I whiff 2 different 8 dice attacks, basically, or I might have to shoot him because they are pinned and strained. So, well, if they had wounded them is where it would matter, and so I wouldn't have to worry about the pin anymore. So we just kind of go to roll, see what he gets on my, I believe he's attacking the IG88. No, 4 dice. Oh, no, he was moving up there and he was going to shoot at the ISB. No, that can't be the case. But either way, the net result is he really just isn't able to swing points to kind of close out this game. So it wraps up in my favor. Really, really interesting game overall. I liked playing the bounty hunters, and they're definitely something that I want to explore more. I felt like they were whiffing for me constantly in that first struggle, and that just put me really behind, and I needed more results from their attacks. But if I'd had the Shatterpoint in the deck correctly, maybe that's a little bit more manageable, and I get that at some point where I can activate the character at a relevant time and also have the ability to like activate somebody again to put pressure on his back points. But also it may just be that this particular bounty hunter list is not great at never tell me the odds. Donovan played that first struggle amazingly well. I got pretty lucky with this final flip for never tell me the odds, which really helped a lot. And that Mando play, getting him starting on that point, was huge. And then I think in retrospect, Donovan just probably needed to activate somebody else with that Shatterpoint instead of Wrecker. It was probably just needed to be a hunter activation. Maybe Crosshair. Not sure. But man, love playing Shatterpoint. Awesome games. Donovan's always a fantastic opponent. I love playing him. Great player. And so wrapping things up here. Trying some different things out with the layout. Got to think about like stabilization of the table when we're playing at the game store, get a little less of that wobbliness. But happy to be trying to do some games, trying to get you guys some content that you can watch on YouTube. Take a look at the various Shatterpoint gameplay and teams. Going to definitely record some more. And as always, this is YouTube, so the most OP thing that you can do is like and subscribe. Later, nerds.